G'day, fans, and welcome to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card. How good is this? It's a Wednesday. The weather is a hell of a lot better than what it was last week. And the most important thing is lockdown is almost over. We can actually almost get out and about and do stuff. How good is that? So we've got 7 people with us already. How unbelievably groovy is this? So got to say hello to everyone. Mr. Aaron, how you doing tonight, old son?
I'm doing well. Strange days. I've got to say we've actually got 8 people with us already because Chad's lurking around in the shop at the moment. So if we hear anything weird, it could just be him.
So it's not your stomach. It's actually going to be like some random dude in the store.
It is more likely to be my stomach. If any weird sounds go, I go, Chad, stop it. No, we're out of lockdown. It's been a good week. How about you, mate?
Yeah, no, I'm hanging in there. It's all very, very good, very, very exciting. Now, a couple of things I've got to get through before we get into the really exciting stuff. Last week, Idiot Me, we were talking about the 1976 Worldcon, and I kind of got the guy's Lippincot's name screwed up. I actually said Phil Lippincott. That's his brother, but the actual guy we're referring to was Charles Lippincott, and there's a picture of him just there. So this is from the 1976 Worldcon before Star Wars came out. So you got Mark Hamill on the right, who no one gave a rat's ass about because at that point he was a nobody. You got Gary Kurtz in the middle, and it's Charles Lippincott, who was the vice president of publicity and marketing and promotions and all that other very exciting stuff. So, yes, very, very cool. So I thought I'd just cover that one off. Now, importantly, the key thing is, so the 25K lockdown ends at midnight tomorrow night, which means you can get out and about and visit places. And, of course, don't worry about going to the Grampians. Don't worry about going off to bloody Ballarat and Sovereign Hill, or definitely stay away from the Dandenongs. But get your ass down to Aaron's store. So, Aaron, how are you feeling about the fact the kilometre radius is finishing and people can come and pay you a visit?
Well, I think it's actually been really amazing this last week since the lockdown kind of ended. I think we've had more people who watch the podcast come in and say, hey, I'm this person, because a lot of people, we don't actually see their pictures until they come in and let us know who they are. So it's been a good week. But that also means now that the 25 kilometre radius is lifted, even more people can come down. So always up for a chat, always up for talking a bit of nerdy. And Dags is here on Saturday if you want to catch up with him as well.
Yeah, it was funny because on last Saturday, we actually had the prequel movies on, and a couple of people came in and they were all in the mood for having a chat about good old Revenge of the Sith and the fate of Mace Windu and all this other stuff. Oh, it was nerds of the world unite. Absolutely fantastic. Actually
people trying to get out the door, but half watching the TV and coming back in. Yes.
There is actually an example where a customer actually stopped another customer while the guy was walking out the door to say, do you reckon Mace Windu actually died in Revenge of the Sith? And the dude stopped and they were both watching the TV discussing the fate of Mace Windu, which was absolutely fantastic. So yes, a few people are saying, yes, good old Mark and that. They're all saying, can all come back. Yes, it's all very good stuff. So, yes. Now, we've got a new segment that we're going to introduce in this particular program, and it actually involves, funnily enough, the store and the people within it. So, Mr. Aaron, what is it, mate?
So it's basically meet the rioters. So you guys can be involved. Just come in and say hi. And if you want to do a shout out on the show, you're welcome to, and we'll put your picture up and say hi. And this week we had Emily, who came in and picked up some Star Wars cards. Usually she comes in with her dad, but her dad was locked outside the 25K limit. So she came in with her mum. And her mum took that photo. And what I think is great about that, her mum has the skills of Peter Jackson when he was shooting The Hobbit, because she's managed to make me and Dags look quite short. I look like a hobbit. Dags maybe looks like an elf. And Emily is there towering over both of us.
Very good stuff. Now, I can imagine a whole lot of people thinking about, oh, I'll come in and meet the rioters. And, of course, they're just going to digitally remove us, you and me, and they just have themselves in the store by themselves.
Well, this week we had a few people, so thanks for everyone that came in. There was Dave and Josh and Doug and too many to go through, but appreciate everyone that comes through. Joe Penn came in and said hi, so I no longer think he's the little head. I think it's from Beetlejuice. That is his avatar. But no, everyone that comes in and says hi, we appreciate being able to put a name with the actual avatars going up the side of the page.
I can imagine what's going to happen now. People, instead of coming in to buy merchandise, they're coming in to say, mate, I just want my photograph with the rioters. It is like the coolest thing in town to say, look, I'm actually with the rioters. I'm actually on the, what do you call, like when you have a big plaque of like special achievements or something like that. So yeah, that's what I reckon will happen there. So it's very, very cool. Speaking of very, very cool, sorry, I'm just going to cut you off. We've actually got 20 people watching us at the moment. So obviously people aren't going out. They're staying home.
That's a fantastic photo gallery. But the great thing is if you come and take a photo with both of us, instantly you look 200% more attractive.
Don't say that. There are some dudes watching this right now thinking, oh, wow, what a way to improve their image. Come into the store and they'll look really cool next to us. You know what? The sad thing is, it's probably not far from the truth. So there you go. Yeah. Very good stuff. Anything else you want to add in before we get into the exciting part of the show, Mr. Aaron?
No, let's get into the news section.
Very cool. And I do like the fact that Carol said, yes, it is too cold to go out. And, of course, Carol's actually based in Ballarat. So that doesn't surprise me. But good old April, who's it's a bit far for her to travel. She's in Scotland, watching us live in Scotland. How groovy is that? So there you go. And Greg, Greg is a measly only 200%. I don't know what that means. Sorry,
for April, we'll have to dig out some pictures from the old Doctor Who Club of Victoria days so she can feel included.
Very, very good. All right, let's get into it. Otherwise, we'll never get stuff done. So let's kick it off with this. Oh, my God. What is it?
So this is the second in my bedside table lamps to give to your kids if you don't want them to ever sleep again. This we looked at the Godzilla one the other week. This is a new one that's coming out. It's the It bedside lamp, and I think this is great because it's the new version of it and the old version of it in the one piece. You've got the original Pennywise, who was Tim Curry, and then you've got the new Pennywise coming out of the drain. And I think, and this is just my opinion, I think they've done it where the original one looks like he's ruling over the new one because I like Tim Curry better than the new version, but that's just personal opinion.
It is seriously not the kind of thing you would give to like your other half. You say, hey, sweetie, on our first date, I've decided to buy this lamp because I think of you whenever I look at this. It's a little bit wrong, isn't it? If you had a little sister that you didn't like, you could sort of get her teddy bear and shove the teddy bear into its jaws, so to speak. That's pretty off. I'm not a fan of this at all.
Horror toys are those interesting things because horror is not really aimed at kids, but toys are. So I think when we get down to Halloween, we might do an episode on horror toys and just look at some of the stuff that's out there. But this is one of those cool things if you're into horror that's around at the moment.
Well, Colin likes it, which is kind of groovy. And yes, PJ, yes, Tim Curry was definitely a damn good It as it was. So very, very cool. All right, but we move away from the It's and get into something a bit more funkier.
So we did the video gaming episode a few weeks ago, and one of the games we did a mini review of was Golden Axe, and it's one of those classic games that everyone grows up with and sort of remembers and loves, but there wasn't much beyond the game at the time, and revealed at Toy Fair this weekend, there were some new Golden Axe figures. So Tyrus Flair on her blue dragon steed, which you can see in all her glory on the side up at the left there. And then we have the dwarf, which is, I've forgotten his name, something Thunderbeard, isn't it?
Again, yeah, I don't know. The only dwarf I know of is the dude from Lord of the Rings, and even I've forgotten his name. Whatever. That guy.
And I never really knew what his little mount was meant to be. It almost looks like a mutant chicken or something, and it's bright. It's bright pink, so obviously bright pink goes faster in the Golden Axe universe.
It's so angry looking. It doesn't go. It goes cluck effing cluck.
Yep, and the blue guy at the back there is not from Golden Axe, but you might remember the silver skeletons that have a very Ray Harryhausen look to them. One of the villains that would turn up. So I think that's a nice little range. And usually when you see toys like this come out for a more not obscure, but a less popular line, they come and go, and once they're gone, it's really unlikely that they come out again. So if you're into the gaming and you like the gaming figures, this is a good little set to pick up when they come out.
I saw this picture and straight away I thought it's Jason and the Argonauts. I don't know about the dude in the middle, but those skeletons, if the game uses these skeletons, they've swiped it straight from that, because that was one of the greatest fight scenes in the planet, when Jason and his dudes are fighting 7 skeletons, all animated by Ray Harryhausen. Absolutely fantastic.
Well, it is one of those things. If you've got the X Plus did some Harryhausen figures, you could pick up some skeletons from Golden Axe to accentuate your Ray Harryhausen collection, because they are very nice looking skeletons.
Very good. And before I get into the last picture, I liked April's comment there. She never liked clowns. A lot of people don't like clowns except for Zig and Zag. And I was actually thinking, you and I could be classic. You could be Zig and I could be Dag. So Zig and Dag. And you are right, PJ. Yes, it didn't end well for them. And we will move on because that is not the kind of thing we want to discuss in the show. But anyway, here's the overview picture of the Golden Axe characters. Yeah.
Yep, some nice figures there if you like your gaming and you like your sort of D&D worlds looking figures.
But if that's not for you, move on to something a little bit more familiar. This.
So this was also revealed yesterday. This is McFarlane's line of DC figures with a couple of Spawn figures. Now, they're the first looks at the figures coming out for Suicide Squad 2, and there's some interesting figures there. And I think the one everyone's going to want the most is King Shark. And, of course, he's the builder figure. So you have to buy all the other figures to put King Shark together. You've got Polka Dot Man, which is an interesting choice. And, of course, you've got Margot Robbie there as well. The other ones we're looking at, Spawn were originally created by McFarlane, and Spawn's back with some nice figures. There's just some previews there of the first wave. And down the bottom, we talked about the 66 Batcave last week. These are the 66 figures that they've started to reveal that are coming with the Batcave. And I think it's a bit of a rip-off because you see the Joker and Robin have alternate heads, the Joker with the mask and the Robin without the mask. They aren't heads you can swap. You have to buy separate figures just to get the separate head. And a lot of toy lines, I think, would throw in the extra head so you could just change them over. But they still are nice-looking figures and a good representation of the characters from those franchises. McFarlane usually do quite a good job.
What the hell? Just get a saw, cut them off, bit of blue tack. No one's ever going to know. Good on you, PJ. It's not Glimmy, it's actually Gimli. So you've actually got one L too many. That's that's the dwarf from Lord of the Rings. So yeah. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, he's so close, but yet so far. But yeah, the figures look particularly groovy. There's no bookworm in there, and no King Tut, and no Egghead. So we've just been jibbed. What can I say?
There'll be. I always thought they should make a Ma Parker figure, but that's never going to happen.
Well, I'd go for who was Liberace's character? He was the bad. He played Shandell. That's right.
Great,
yeah,
Shandell.
And his brother Harry, I think it was. So, oh my God, we have a massive bang and bloody freaking 66 talk here. Absolutely insane. And you are right. Yes, Adam West was a bit of hubba for a lot of people out there, which is absolutely true. Hang on, as always, exactly right. All right, we've got to move on to the eBay section. We've still got 20 people watching, so clearly nobody wants to go outside, which is absolutely fantastic. Next week, when all freedom is bestowed upon us, we'll have nobody watching this show. We've got 21 now, which is absolutely fantastic. All right, so what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we're going back to the that great building, the great building franchise Lego. So we're going to look at Lego bricks because there's been a few interesting things that have turned up on eBay this week with some prices that may shock you. So we're starting off with Space Lego. This is just a little Space Lego set that was released, I think, about 1983. This one, the yellow spacemen had come in, so it wasn't just the yellow, it wasn't just the red and white. It's a little set. It comes with the instructions that are usually missing when you get a loose set from this era. How much would you expect to pay?
So for those who've never watched this show before, don't Google it, don't look it up or anything. Just take a pure guess and just type your what you think it's sold for. These are sold figures. They're not for sale. They've actually already been bought. And just take a guess as to what you think they went for. What I liked about the fact is they didn't even bother to straighten up the helmet on the character. They just put his helmet on crooked. So yes, very, very, very good stuff. So there you go. All right. So far the bids are coming in. All right. So $20 from Ange. PJ's at $250, so he's added an extra zero on top of that. Carol's at $900. $175 for Matthew. Christie's at $300. She can visit the store now because the 25K limit has been lifted. Colin is at $145. Mark is at $199. William is at $150. That's a lot for this bloody little ship, isn't it? Rob is at $95. Joshua said $200. Daniel Moneybag Sullivan has said $250. Rob has said $50. Considering what it is, it's just a little dude on a little car. It's some ridiculous prices there. So, yes, good on you, Christy. Yay, indeed. So there's no reason why people can't pay us a visit. April has, she's even put the pounds in there for us, which is absolutely fantastic. $250, which is a very, very cool. The vial, good to be violated once again on this wonderful Wednesday night, is a $550. Tell you
Well,
what, it's absolutely,
it really is a violation, isn't it?
Oh, mate, there's nothing like being violated on a Wednesday. So, yes, very, very, very cool. All right, so Lego. So don't forget there's no box. Greg has only got $2. So check that. Oh, Greg, absolutely fantastic. I love it. All right, so it's the Crater Crawler 1985. It is used, so make of that what you will, but there's no box, but there are instructions, and the price went for, look at that.
I think Greg got it.
Geez, I tell you what, he may have. Anything you want to say about this while I look for some prices?
I think there was a 20, but I think Greg's $2 got it. It's one of those things. I think that was a good price. Like sometimes the Lego figures from that era by themselves go for more than that, and you get the entire set with the instructions. So that was a good little pickup if you collect Space Lego. And Space Lego is one of those themes that people do focus on and like to build a big lunar playset.
So, Greg, for your measly $2, something for the garage side, you've got to add an extra $6. But there you go, sir. How good is that? You've actually won that, which is something absolutely. Everybody's thinking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it went for $8.50. And what's funny is there were 11 bids. So the bids must have been like really cheap, 20 cents, 30 cents a pop or something.
Well, that's why I threw the one in with a lot of bids so people would be fooled. But I'd like to point out in 10 or 12 weeks, Greg has won some Donald Bradman cards and a Lego figure. So well done, Greg.
Very, very good. I like Christy said, yeah, she'd be willing to pay for the instructions. So how about that, eh? So not everything goes for a lot of money, kids. So even Lego actually has some cheap side, has a cheap side to it. So there you go. All right, move along. What have we got?
Well, here's so it's all Lego themed tonight. Here's a bunch of bricks that will build you the Acklay from the arena scene in everyone's favorite Star Wars movie, Attack of the Clones. So this is one of those Lego poly bags that isn't actually a figure, but it's Lego bricks that you can build into the monster. Now, Dags and I were talking about this. The scene from Attack of the Clones with the Acklay was actually a tribute to Ray Harryhausen, so it's a bit of a theme tonight. Of Ray Harryhausen stuff. How much would you pay to add the Acklay to your Lego collection?
Remember that Acklay wasn't evil, he was just a little misunderstood. So there you go. All right, so PJ's got, everybody's learnt from the last one. PJ's gone for 25. Andrew's doing a Greg and gone for 2. Josser is at $12.50. Rob is at 5. He's going to go like $100 or $600 for this. Colin Young has said, unless he sees Doctor Who stuff, he's take a guess, Colin. You never know.
In a couple of weeks, we're going to do a Doctor Who show with Doctor Who eBay, Doctor Who, but that's down the probably 2 weeks away. Yeah,
that's when I'm having my day off. So Colin has said 55. Mark has said less than $2. Thomas, everybody's taking a leaf out of Greg's book now. Thomas said 175. Good on you, Thomas. Yeah, that's you. Put us some big dollars. Carol's gone for nearly 200 and 190. 75 for William. Moneybag Sullivan has said 40. Matthew has said 45. So there you go. Colin, he's happy because there's a Doctor Who talk coming up. But anyway, we're talking about Star Wars, Acklay, and don't go dissing the clones. Attack of the Clones, one of my favorite Star Wars movies of the bunch, so which is absolutely fantastic. So very, very cool. All right, so any more bids coming in for the packeted Acklay? Which is hang on. The vial has says $60, 66. I know why he said that for order 66. Anyway, we'll move on along with this one. So what do you think it went for in the bag? Looking fantastic. Straight at Attack of the Clones, it went for $8.
$8. Interesting fact. Order 66 on the Geonosian menu was actually boiled Acklay legs. So yeah. All right. Rob is at 5. So he's still got to add 3 into it. Joshua's at $12.50. No, he's too high. I'm going to go with Rob on this one at this stage. I can tell you who didn't get it. Carol didn't get it at 190, that's for sure. Yes, I reckon. Yeah, good on you, Mr. Rob. I've lost Rob. He's disappeared somewhere. But he's happy, so he can put alongside his spanking that he absolutely loves and adores, so which is very, very cool. So there you go, $8 for an Acklay. So there you go. So very, very good. Yeah, PJ. Yeah, you've just got to assume that not all Lego is worth a lot of money. So there you go. So well done to Rob. All right, now that everybody has an idea as to how cheap everything is, what do you reckon this is going for? So this is a Duplo set, which of course is the Lego for younger kids. You can see you could still buy one of these if you want, because there's 2 that have sold and 1 that is still available. It's a buy it now price. Shipping is free. How much to buy this for your little tacker?
Yes. And depending on what it's worth, you may have to sell the tacker just to buy the product. So there you go.
I think it's great that there's this giant cat sitting on there. It could be Kitten Kong from the Goodies or something like that.
Love it. All right, so Carol has gone for. Hang on, I've lost Carol. Carol's gone for $8.95. So we're just going to say $9. Make my life easy. $30 for Mark. Thomas has said 40. Matthew has said 45. Ange is at 15. Apparently, you can still buy this in the shops. So there you go. So if you've seen it in the shops recently, it might give you an idea as to what it's worth. Emily, there's our most favorite writer of the group, because she's the only one at this stage. So how good is that? What'd you say? Sorry, $12.50. Yep. PJ has said 40. Rob has said 15. Colin said 10. No, hang on. Sorry, Colin is at 10. William is at 40. Yeah, you're right, Joshua. They'll pay $10 to have someone pick it up. Yep. Sarah has said 7. Moneybag Sullivan has said 35. So there you go. People just aren't sure, are they? There's just an automatic assumption that all this stuff's going to be worth a lot of money. A base, especially from the last Lego stuff we did, where we had Boba Fett's and whatever, Han Solo and Carbonite selling for thousands of billions of dollars.
Worked out my trick that this episode might be low-priced items. So.
The Vial has said 30 and Rod has said 29. So yeah, you never know. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see. So anyway, so it's a Lego Duplo train number, whatever it is, 10847. Very, very cool. There were 2 available, so there you go. Anyway, we move on, and the price this went for was that. Suck eggs, everybody.
$999.99. So this is one of those things that surprises me on eBay sometimes, because everyone's absolutely right. They still are available in the shops, and they still are priced at a lot less than this. This is a sold item, and 2 of them went for this price. And I don't know how that happens, if it's a money laundering scam or something like that, but that's how much this set went for.
I think we've got to split this over 3 people. So Thomas said Matthew's at 45. I think Matthew has it by $5, but he's still was at $950 short. So no one is even remotely close. So
Matthew's done the Price is Right thing, where everyone puts their bid in and he just puts $5 more and wins.
Well, it worked for Greg, didn't it? So there you go. How's that? No one was even close. They were all off by hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. Isn't that absolutely insane? Yeah, PJ, I have to agree with you, man. That makes no sense whatsoever. They're all going, oh my God, unbelievable. You know what you guys look like? You look like the JB Hi-Fi catalog when they're selling TVs, and it goes, awesome, fantastic. Oh, yeah, unreal. Except in this case, it's like that.
Unbelievable.
I love it. Yeah, good on you, Matthew. It's about time you won. So there you go. And here we go. This one for this. This will sell a TV. Oh, for God's sake. Love those catalogs. All right. So now everybody's completely confused. Are they up or are they down? There you go. All right. Next one along.
So here we go. We were talking about Space Lego before. Here is a massive Legoland space sets with instructions, bulk lot. You've got base plates with craters. You've got about 3 lunar bases. You've got your spaceships, the vehicles on the lunar surface, and then you've got weird robots and things like that. And this one had 46 bids, so there's a bit of interest there. Were the bids high bids, or were they 50 cents each though? We'll have to speculate. Yeah,
it's a tricky one, isn't it? You would assume there's going to be a lot of money in this. I would assume that. Here we go. Now there's some big numbers coming through. So, all right, Joshua kicked it off at 1,800. Mark is at 2,000. Carol's at 3,500. Matthew's at 900. Emily's at 3,000. Sorry, Greg, $2, mate. You just sell the one you bought earlier, and yeah, that'll help you. Ange at 1,555. Rod is at 3,500. Thomas is also at 3,500. Colin's at 1,000. Yes, PJ, not just your own kidneys, but your kids and your friends and everybody else. Sarah's gone for a whopper, 6,500. Sorry, was that? I've been a mess the last 2 shows. 850. Good, Dave. Good to see you back, mate, after a couple of missing shows. 1,200 from William. Rob is at 3,000 and PJ's at 4,000. big numbers. Isn't that
This was
insane?
this was one of those lots where I'm looking at completed items and think if I had found this before the bidding was over, I might have tried to buy this myself because I love classic space Lego. So nice set.
Very cool. If you watched a few of our episodes, Lego episodes, like 5 or 6 episodes ago, we actually discussed this in detail. Daniel has said 8,000. April is at 4,500. And the vial is at 2276. So, yeah, you would have to assume there's some big dollars here. So, yes, if you're a collector of space Lego, or if you weren't and you wanted to be, you could actually get your entire collection like complete in one hit. And so, yes, be kind of funny you're carrying it all out to the car and you drop it and smashes everywhere. Very, very cool. All right, so bulk vintage 80s Legoland space set with instructions. So there you go. If you do smash them up, you can just build them all again. So there you go. Very, very cool. And the price went for... Look at that. Bargain.
So 1,225, which I think was a pretty good price for that. If you had bought all of that stuff new when it came out, and we're talking this is 30, 40 years old now, it would have come close to that because some of those big sets were, $90, $100 each. So I thought that was a really good deal.
Yeah, I tend to, even as a non-Lego person, I can say that, yeah, this is a bit of a bargain. And William looks like all you got to add in is extra $25, dude, and it's all yours. How good is that? You can put all that alongside your DVD Blu-ray collection. How good is that? So, yeah, I'm sure that I agree with you, PJ. It's a steal. That's an absolute bargain and a half. And yet there were 46 bids. So go figure, kids. Someone obviously wasn't prepared to put in the knockout bid and just go $2-3 grand and just blitz the field. They obviously haggled for quite a long time over this. So,
Giant bids aren't what you place walking on the moon.
You freaking idiot. Oh, dear. Yeah, I just hope my legs don't break. All right, so there you go. So, yeah, that was a bargain indeed. All right, so, and the fifth and last one, sticking with the Lego, figure me up, Uncle Alfred. Get a load of that.
Here we go. 300 Lego figures, every single genre, every type of figure you could imagine. These are all genuine Legos, so there's none of the crap knockoffs in there. You can see in the middle there's a Hulk, and then there's also Star Wars figures. There's some Stormtroopers. There's a lot of Lego Town figures. So if you were looking to populate your Legoland, that's an instant population right there.
Tell you what, if every one of these figures entered their way into Aaron's store, we would have to actually sort of sell tickets, that's for sure. So Carol has said 5,500. Rod is at 1,000. Joe is at 800. Mark is at 1,500. Joshua's at 900. Matthew's at 1,600. Colin's at 825. Rob is at 8,000. Oh, there's a lot, eh? 2,500 from PJ. 1,200 from William. Emily, our favourite writer, and so far our only writer, is at 3,500. 2,000 from Thomas. 250 from Christy. Oh, she's not put much faith in the old Lego minifigs. And April has gone for $5,000. It's a lot of money, isn't it, for just these little dudes?
William has just bought the lunar surface, and now he needs the figures to populate the moon. So hopefully he gets it with his bid. We'll see how we go, though.
Very good. Ange is at 555, and Moneybag Sullivan is at 3,000. He's done the figures, boom tish, working out at $10 a figure. Done the maths, and away you go. So you never know. The violating those figures would be a bit of fun, that's for sure. 4,565. So there you go. All right. So what do we reckon? 300 figures plus accessories. Oh mate, it's absolutely awesome. They went for a whopping
an absolute bargain. And I think it is one of those examples of when you mix up different genres, you alienate the people who don't like the other genres. So if you are collecting Star Wars, you don't want to buy 300 figures to get 10 clones. And if you collect Marvel, you don't want to buy 300 figures to get the Hulk and a couple of others. So it's one of those examples. It's good for someone like me that would buy in bulk and split them up in the shop. But what I was saying about with William, he'd only want the space figures out of there, not all the other stuff.
I'm going to think it goes to Ange at 555 because he's, I can't do the maths, so it's about 70-something bucks over, whichever. I think he actually did it. But I tell you, didn't get it. Moneybag Sullivan working at $10 a figure. That is awesome. Oh my God! Oh, look at that! You're like, it's another steal! Oh my God! Oh my God! Ouch!
So
Oh,
there
that's
you go. Even in lockdown, there are still some bargains to be had on eBay. And even though people sit on eBay and bid and look for stuff, there are still bulk lots you can get quite a good deal on.
Isn't that absolutely insane? And you're right. If you were to sell the figures individually, say in your store, that many, you'd be spending thousands on them. But yeah, how's that? 28 bids, and that's what they come up with. $470. Absolutely unbelievable. I tell you what, though, the best part about it was actually the Marcus said he gives up. He's only good with Doctor. Oh, I love it. That is absolutely awesome. You can't predict these things, can you? It's completely and utterly insane. So there you go.
It is
very, very good. Anything you want to add in about the old Lego figures before we move on to the prize discussion?
Just eBay in general. I think everyone's had that experience where they've watched something and been prepared to bid at the last minute when it's going to jump up, and they're the only other person that bids, so they get it for way under what they expect. And then there's the other side of things where you're looking at something you think you found and no one else has seen, and you're going to get for the minimum bid, and 5 minutes before it ends, like a couple of thousand people bid on it, and it goes right out of your price range. So searching for stuff, it takes a bit of skill, but it's also a bit of luck with eBay as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some tears out there from people who missed out on these absolute bargains. So there you go. But anyway, we're going to move away from the good old Lego and into something very, very exciting. Now, this is a continuation of our discussion last week. And if you've forgotten what that was, it was this. So there you go. What are we on about?
Yep. So Star Wars before the internet. And as I said last week, it is an expansive subject. And we researched enough to find enough for 2 weeks, and that's just mainly looking at A New Hope stuff. So I hope everyone was interested in what we looked at last week. We're finishing off Star Wars this week before we sort of move on to other things. So here we go.
Good. Now, last week, because of a slight muck-up in our presentation, where we were discussing records and music and all the rest of it, right? And at the very, very end, good old Aaron wanted to have a bit of a rant about good old Christmas of the Stars, but he didn't actually send me the picture of the Christmas of the Stars. So for those who've never seen it, that's what it looks like. So, and we pick it up from here. So go for it, old son.
I'll just point out, I did send the picture. It didn't come through. So
lame technology.
Technology, gotta love it. I also think if I was trying to send Christmas to the Stars to anyone, like, the internet would probably, have a convulsion and not send it either. But Christmas from the Stars is one of those Christmas albums for anyone who likes to collect bad albums. It's a great bad album. My two favorite Christmas albums are Switched on Christmas by K-Tel, that has Santa Claus with lightning bolts coming out of his fingers and has like an hour of synthesized looped Christmas hits, and Christmas with the Stars, that has such songs as What Do You Buy a Wookiee for Christmas When He Already Has a Comb? So this is a great Christmas album. It's fun to chuck on. You wouldn't want to listen to it a heap. To have a bit of a laugh with your friends if they're into Star Wars. And the other
sorry, go on.
Sorry. No, sorry.
I was going to say, what you do get a Wookiee for Christmas is just give him a bigger bowcaster. And PJ's right. Yes, Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi did actually sing on it, but his sister didn't sing on it. That's Ann Jovi, in case you didn't know who that was. So here you go.
She got a bit salty for not being allowed on it.
Yeah, very good. Anyway, we're moving past the albums. We just wanted to put this in the completed from last week. So, yes, very, very cool.
Okay. So we looked at toys and things last week, and one of the big areas of Star Wars that doesn't really, get a lot of documentation is bedding and curtains and bedspreads and pillows and things like that. And it was absolutely huge. And I think one of the reasons why not so many people, a few people collect it, but not so many people know about it, I guess it's disposable. Where if you've got a bedspread or you've got like sheets or something like that, and they get worn out as kids and kids get older, parents tend to give them to the op shop or throw them out. They don't get really recycled and put into collections. But recently, we can see in the top corner there, the top left-hand corner, there's a lot of people on Etsy and different craft groups that are taking these old curtains and bedspreads and turning them into really cool retro dresses and clothing. So I've seen some really cool dresses, especially when you go to the cosplay at conventions. You get cosplayers, or I guess it's not really cosplay, but they're wearing sort of retro clothes made from retro material. And you also see waistcoats made out of it and things like that. And the patterns are really cool. And they're so good. There's actually been new companies that have got the rights to these old patterns, and they've made them again. And Pottery Barn for the last couple of years is one of those places that does this. And I was shocked. I walked into Pottery Barn at Chadstone and picked up the exact same bedding that I had when I was a child, which was the Empire Strikes Back ones. Bought a double size, took it home, and my wife was just not impressed. Once in a while it goes into rotation, but it's usually in the spare room on the spare bed. And then, sorry, yeah. Then,
so it really was a case of not impressive.
Well, this is how I pitched it. I was really clever. There was a Millennium Falcon bunk bed, and I said, I want to buy the bunk bed, not really wanting to buy the bunk bed, knowing my wife would no way let me buy the bunk bed. And when she's like, we're not buying a Millennium Falcon bunk bed, I said, well, can I get the sheets as a consolation prize? And she felt so sorry for me that she said, oh, yeah, we can get the sheets. So
yeah. So you really did give her the sheets, literally. So there you go. Joel, I like this one. Yeah, you still got the Empire Strikes Back pillowcase and the sheets. So do I, actually, like the Duna cover. And funnily enough, if you're ever a dealer at a collector's fair, they made fantastic table coverings because they were just, the color and the style and the design, it just made it very inviting. And as soon as you looked at it, you knew straight away, oh, this is a dealer who's dealing in Star Wars merchandise. And I knew a few people who followed that. Even I did that back in the days when I had a dealer's table. And you're right, with people who bought these things, used them as sheets, and then eventually said, oh, we'll make clothes out of them. They actually look really, really groovy, and then you can make some really, really nice outfits. And you're right, it's funny how something that was so old and almost like forgotten has been reinvented and has got a whole new life, which is absolutely fantastic. So there you go.
Interesting, because on eBay these are sought after, not just the Star Wars ones, but Empire Strikes Back and Transformers and all of them. Not so much by Star Wars collectors, but by people who want to make them into clothes. So it's actually that new demand that's put the price up and made them more collectible.
Very good. Now, when you're buying the sheets and you're driving your wife up the wall, was it because of this as well?
Exactly. Star Wars wallpaper. It's one of those things as a kid, you would go into one of Bristol's or something like that that sold wallpaper, and you'd go, oh my goodness, I want my wall done in this. And as a kid, that's a fantastic idea. As a parent, the idea of having like this busy Star Wars wallpaper all over an entire room must have given parents heart attacks. So it was very brave parents, I think, that would have allowed kids to do their entire bedroom in Star Wars wallpaper. I have an interesting story about this. We weren't allowed to get it when it originally came out. There was no way my parents were going to paper a room in Star Wars wallpaper. And I found mine in Camberwell Market. Someone was selling a set of golf clubs. And I used to ask every single stall as I went around, do you have any Doctor Who or do you have any Star Wars? And they were like, no, nothing like that. And he goes, oh, hang on a second. I think we put some of the wallpaper in the golf caddy. And they pull out a couple of rolls of unused wallpaper from the golf caddy. So that's where I scored my Star Wars wallpaper from.
That is grouse. I remember at one of our club meetings, we actually, you could get the wallpaper, you might get like a small roll of it, but when someone actually had a large roll for sale, it was like absolutely like gold. And you're right, Joel, yeah, it was absolutely classic. And Jared, yes, how much it would be worth today? I mean, you could actually do a feature wall in Star Wars wallpaper. I mean, to be fair, I agree, the design isn't the greatest design in the world, but at the time, it was very, very groovy.
Yeah, Star Wars wallpaper is one of those hit or miss things where sometimes it goes for a fortune and sometimes it doesn't go at all. And I think it's if a couple of people are looking for it and two people bid, it might go for 100 or more a roll. And then I've seen hardly any bids on a roll. When I've had it in the shop, we don't sell it as a roll. We'll generally cut one drop so you get an entire poster size of the print and sell it, for $19 for the print, so someone can get the entire thing but not paper their wall with it.
Yeah, I mean, nothing worse if you try to paper the wall and you run out of paper and you go, we're going to buy some more. Yeah, it'd be kind of difficult. Joshua, I do like this. Yes, I have seen the Star Wars Hawaiian T-shirts that have been advertised on Facebook. The only thing I don't like is it's got the word Star Wars written on them. I was like, if you got a Star Wars thing, the idea is you don't need the word written on it saying what it is. The design should be enough. Like this, for example, is a Hawaiian shirt. It doesn't say Hawaii on it. So Yes,
Yeah.
but I do actually like them. I reckon they're very, very cool. So, but
Interestingly,
I've got, sorry, just
sorry.
finish this off. At the end of the show, I've got something I have to announce for next week, which is very, very cool. What are you going to say?
Interestingly, I'm a total tragic where I saw them and I bought one and a Doctor Who one and a couple of other ones that when they turn up will be debuting on the show.
Yeah, exactly right. And you're right, Mr. Vile. It is actually a shirt from Scariff, not from Hawaii. So there you go. All right, we move along. I find this a little puzzling. Boom tish.
Yes. One of the things we didn't look at, and it's a fantastic area to collect, not just with Star Wars, but a lot of different franchise, is jigsaws. And jigsaws fall into that category again. When I was growing up, one of the ways to get pictures from a movie you liked was jigsaw puzzles, because you'd have the books and you might have some of the trading cards, but there wasn't the internet. And often jigsaw companies would pick really cool pictures that you might not see anywhere else. I mean, because we're all familiar with Star Wars, we know all these shots, but I remember seeing the jigsaws as a kid and you're like, oh my goodness, there's the Cantina Band. And, I might not have had a picture of it anywhere else. The other interesting thing about the jigsaws, because they were a space movie, sometimes they picked pictures that were a little bit too challenging for little Aaron Challenger. Now, there is one of the X-Wing in space, which a lot of people are legendary say that's a hard one to do because it's a 500-piece puzzle and the most of it is black space background. But I found this one down in the corner there of the Millennium Falcon, which I actually had never had, which was a 1,500-piece puzzle, and the majority of that is black space background. Now, I can imagine that being a challenging puzzle to do.
I agree with you. It's funny because you look at some of the pictures and you go, oh, wow, that'd be awesome as a puzzle. And others, you're thinking, I don't get it. So at the top, it's hard for everybody to see this. But this picture up here, for example, is Luke and Han in the trash compactor. And it's such a bizarre picture to have. But as a puzzle, it'd probably be quite interesting because there's a lot of color and nothing matches up. So it's not like you got a straight line like that. This would be like lines like here, well, all the stuff that's inside the trash compactor. So that is kind of bizarre. So, but take that as it is. But yeah, otherwise, very, very cool.
Yeah, so, and you can see there if you collect classic jigsaws, there was quite a variety you could collect, and most of the ones in the main picture there were the standard ones released through Kenner. They're different colours of the boxes denoted different number of pieces. But up in the top corner there's also some of the foreign jigsaws. That one I think is from Italy. And sometimes they'd just reprint the same jigsaws as Kenner did, and sometimes they'd make their own pictures. There's a series from the UK as well, which is really nice, that has different pictures. So if you collect puzzles, the other thing that I have done many times is count the pieces, because do you know when you ask a dealer, is this complete? They always tell you yes. And then it takes you a couple of days to do it. So you don't have a chance to take it back. So there have been many times where I have been at trash and treasure markets or collector fairs, and the easiest way to do it is stack them into lots of 10. So you just count 10, 10, 10, 10, stack them up, and then go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. You're missing 10. It's short kind of thing. So that's my tip on trying to buy complete jigsaws.
Very good, and it'll take you 3.5 hours to do that in the collector's fair, but each to their own. G'day, Gavin. Good to see you join us. He's late having dinner. I hope it was a damn good dinner because you're missing the show, son. And we're going to have some food coming up right in a second or two. And I agree with you, Jared, the slave layer puzzle, yeah, that would have been a very popular one. There's no denying that at all. So speaking of food, were you chowing down on this?
So here we go. One of the hardest collectibles to find for not just Star Wars, a lot of different franchises, is the disposable ice cream wrappers and boxes. Ice cream wrappers and boxes are very hard to find because if you buy an ice cream from a milk bar, the first thing you do when you open it is throw out the sticky wrapper. And if you buy the boxes, often they're in the freezer and they get sort of freezer damage when you buy a box. So not many people buy them with the mind of preserving them and keeping them. So that's quite sad because there's not a lot of them around, and some of the designs that they came up with are amazing pieces of art. We've got ice cream and popsicle and icy pole wrappers here from Australia, the UK, America, and there's a couple of other foreign ones from Europe. But if you find any of these, you're doing pretty good because they are very hard to find.
Yeah, I was discussing last week about the guy that I used to know, Phil Mitzi, who was buying all the food wrappers from all around the world. So he would have had all of these, but in different languages as well. But you are right. It's the kind of thing that at the time, no one really thought about. They just go, oh, yeah, we'll just buy it, throw the thing away. And then decades later, it suddenly becomes something that's really, really prized and worth getting.
This is an interesting photo here because that's an Australian shop, and that's kind of the typical Australian milk bar that you'd grow up with in the 70s and 80s. And I remember, riding down with my bike and buying, 20 cents worth of mixed lollies. And that would take, it seemed like half an hour to choose because lollies were half a cent and a cent each at the time. But that's interesting because it's surrounded by the Australian icy pole material. Have we got that slide there, Dags?
Sorry, which one are we looking at? That one there? Yep.
Yep. So there's a few interesting things on here. The Star Wars icy pole down in the bottom left corner was actually released during the time of Return of the Jedi. And you can tell that because it's got the exclusive Tolto's offer for Admiral Akbar on it, which of course wouldn't have been around during Star Wars. And now that's one of the items I actually found myself, and there's really not a lot of them in existence. That's the advertising off the wall of a milk bar, advertising the icy pole. And the reason I managed to get that, I walked in and I said, wow, Star Wars icy poles. This was in about 1990. You haven't got those. Can I have the advertising for it? And the milk bar owner, this was in Milk Bar in St Kilda, said, no, we can't give you that because we're still selling the icy poles. And I said, well, I'll buy all the icy poles you've got if you've got any left. And they had a look and there were none there and there were none out the back. And he was nice enough to get out a ladder and take it off the wall. So that's quite a rare item. I can't imagine many of those exist. And then down the bottom middle is the actual wrapper from the icy poles that were sold with that. So that was Peters. Peters were the ones that had the license for them. In Australia, it was Peters and Streets. So on the other side there is the Empire Strikes Back Streets icy poles, which, again, I have an interesting story about. They were absolutely disgusting. They were black and they were meant to taste of, I think, blackberry with a raspberry centre and a lime line around it. And I had one of them and it tasted to me like an aniseed icy pole. And when you get jelly babies, no one eats the aniseed ones. They always get left. So this was about the early 80s. I think it came out in about 1981. And I decided I was going to keep the box of icy poles forever as a collectible. And we put them in the corner of the freezer. My parents were a bit dubious about it, but, I did so many crazy things. This was not high on the list of craziness that I had done, for sure. And I kept them for about 5 or 6 years. And then the family went on a holiday to Phillip Island for about 2 weeks. And while we were down there, there was a power cut. Everything defrosted. And then the power came back on and everything refrosted. So when we came back, everything in the fridge had spoiled. And my box of icy poles had turned into black sludge and then refrozen again with all these other food products. And it was not savable, even though I tried.
I can't help but think of this joke. So you got your icy pole over there, right? Your mother buys it and gives it to you. And your father says, what if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. Oh dear, some funny stuff there. Yeah, keeping food in fridge. There's some very, very funny stories. There's a few messages here regarding some of the stuff that I've kept, but we'll move on. Otherwise, we'll never get to the end of this. And a lot of people have said yes, they did not think that those ice creams were very nice at all. But we move on to this.
So we had a preview of this on the Aaron's Collectibles site a couple of weeks ago. One of the cool things, I think, I guess some people still do customize things now, but this was a very early example. This was Women's Day jumping on the Star Wars bandwagon. It doesn't mention Star Wars. It's an outer space station that you could get your parents to build, or I guess if you were a little bit older, you could build for yourself. But it is just chock-loaded with Star Wars figures. And this was actually a fantastic station that you could build and display or play with your Star Wars figures on, because at the time there wasn't that many play sets for Star Wars. The only thing is when you get the instructions and you look at it, there's like Tupperware bowls and all these other things. And if I'd said to my mum, can I use the salad bowl to make like a habitat for Darth Vader on this space station? The answer would have just been no. But the interesting thing there, they're a bit small, a bit hard to see down in the bottom right-hand corner. There's about 12 vinyl Cape Jawas that the designer for this was given, or the photographer this was given when they took photos for Women's Day. So the Women's Day is hard to get and collectible, but the designer was given probably $10,000 worth of Jawas and probably ripped them all off the card and used them to make this amazing display.
Very cool. I've got to have my one moment of one-upmanship here. So Gavin says he has a chocolate Yoda from the Melbourne Convention in '97, which is Force 2, which I helped run, by the way. Yep. And he said he's kept it in mint in its original wrapper and hasn't gone off. Sorry, Gavin, I can beat you on that one, son. I've got a chocolate Batmobile in my fridge from 1992, which is 5 years earlier. And, of course, I've got some Batman Forever and Batman and Robin ice creams, which are still in the freezer, still minting condition as well. So back at you, son. So there you go. Very, very cool.
And here is just a group of a whole lot of different things that we can't cover everything because there is so much Star Wars merchandise. But at the beginning of last show, we had a big look at some of the many different things. There are video games, which we'll probably look at in their own on their own episode. Bot bags, lightsabers, international items, premium food giveaways. There's a fantastic lot of glasses that were given away at different places in different countries. Badges, stickers, colouring books, painting sets, cake tins, kites. So there's a whole lot of stuff for Star Wars. If you collected vintage Star Wars, you could pick just about any subject and you could guarantee that someone took a license out and slapped Star Wars in it. Puffy stickers, 8 tracks, watches, just about anything you can imagine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would look at this and go, oh, I remember those when they came out, or they even had them. Funny enough, you got right here in the pop-up book, right in the middle. And actually, of course, I had that along with a few other things. And it is a bit of a trip down in memory lane because you can say, well, I had these items, and it's like, where are they now? And if you wanted to rebuy them again, could you? And I think some, yes, but some definitely not. And I think it's really, really cool to see. This stuff was all, what I find funny is when it all came out, it was just there. It was just stuff. You buy it, you don't buy it, whatever. But now it's all regarded as nostalgic. It's all regarded as classic. And a lot of it is regarded as valuable for people of our era. And I guess it's funny how time sort of like extrapolates that mindset. You say, well, 40-something years ago, no one really cared. Oh, I see it in the store. I buy it. I don't buy it. Who, what's the big deal? But now we do look at it and go, oh, yeah, had we grabbed it back then and hung on to it, we could have been sitting there on a small gold mine. So
it is interesting because you guys did a Talk Nerdy to Me episode on not just Star Wars ice creams, but just different ice creams from the era. And Star Wars ice cream have that sort of, or icy poles have that sort of collector's value. But when you did that episode, everyone that came up, people were going, oh, I remember that. That was fantastic. But no one would want that packing now, or very little people, where the Star Wars ones have held that value. But when it came out at that time, they were all at that base level of this is disposable stuff that just gets thrown. So
totally agree. Really, sorry.
So I did see, I like Joe's comment there about you should eat.
So, Joe, if I'm going to eat one of my ice creams from 1995, you can pay for the hospital bills, shall you? And you're right, Joel. It is reliving the past, but that's what makes it so good and so enjoyable. So there you go. Yeah. Imagine the colours coming back up. Oh, golly. All right, so let's move on, shall we?
Okay, we're moving on to some more specific stuff that some of our viewers might have remembered collecting when they grew up. I certainly did. And if Dicko's watching and Adam are watching, this one will interest you. These are Star Wars trading cards. Now, Star Wars trading cards were huge, and they were one of the things that came out early during the run of Star Wars because I guess paper goods they could get together. We were ripped off in Australia. We just got the first series of Star Wars trading cards, which is the Blue Series. Scanlan's licensed and put out. But there were 5 series of Star Wars trading cards in America. And they were one of those things that must have been a huge money spinner for any movie to get to 5 sets, they're not going to be releasing a new set unless the sales of the previous set were pretty good. So Series 1 obviously must have been the biggest selling set, probably the biggest selling non-sports set of trading cards ever, I would say, Star Wars. And they still hold value, and they still have a lot of people who are after them and collect them, even though they're not rare. They're just valuable for the sake of being 70s Star Wars collectibles, and to have a set is something a lot of people want. Did you collect Star Wars cards when you were growing up, Dags?
I did. I just want to say, you're right, Gavin. A lot of the colours were to attract kids, and that's exactly what they did. And there was a thing about, don't forget the gum. The idea being that you would chew as much gum as you can in one go. Yeah, I think everybody collected the cards at the time. And the thing that I found interesting is that the last card, which was like card number 70-something, it just stopped, right? Yeah. And, of course, as you realise, Series 2, which we never got, carried on for the next number, and it went from there. And I was actually at a convention one time in 86, and I came across all these other Star Wars cards with different coloured borders. And I look at the numbers, it's like 200 and this and 300 and that, and I go, what on earth are these? Where were these things? Because you're right, we didn't even know that Series 2, 3, 4, 5 had even come out until we started seeing them, or I saw them at this particular event. So, to say we had the complete set, not even close. And the fact that you didn't realise until afterwards, yes, because there was no final card, because in our future series they started producing checklists and whatever else. Yeah, that was the reason why. So we, as in Australia, got absolutely duped big time. So, yeah.
Especially as the old trading cards were one of the ways that kids of the day got to see different pictures. And one of the things we got ripped off about, and Topps actually advertised this as a selling point, the first series of Star Wars trading cards with the blue border had hardly any of the aliens from the Cantina. And kids got them, and they got this set. And that was a lot of people's favourite scene, because they hadn't seen ever a movie with so many weird aliens at the same time. And Topps got feedback from parents and kids, where are all these weird aliens from the Cantina? So they actually advertised Series 2 and 3 by saying, and we're going to show you more of the aliens from the Cantina. And in later sets, they even showed pictures of masks from behind the scenes, which was really unusual at the time for a trading card set to do. Very good.
So PJ has mentioned that 3PO card. Now, for those who've never seen this before, this is slightly adult. Okay, so we're warning you in advance. Okay, so it's the old goldenrod, literally. So, and this actually is a legitimate thing that we're showing you. So it is a little bit adult. So just be mindful of that. So don't take offences to what we're about to show you. Okay,
sorry, kids.
Sorry, kids. Shut your eyes.
So the green set, which was, again, another set of Star Wars cards that just fits in with the numbers. There was an error card, and it is C-3PO, which is known as Dag said, as the goldenrod card, because he looks like he's got an extra attachment that shouldn't be there. And this is one of those cards that's kind of legendary, because no one exactly knows how this occurred. There's all these different urban legends, from a disgruntled employee stuck it there to all these different things. There's people who say maybe it's an insect that flew in front of the picture as they were taking a photo at just exactly the right time. I've read a couple of articles on it, and the one that seems to be the consensus of what probably happened is a fleck of something, of dirt or of dust or something, just blew across the card as they took the photo, and no one picked it up when it was released. And what is really interesting, Australia didn't get this set, but a couple of other countries did, and it didn't get picked up on the overseas sets either. So there's a few overseas sets that still have this C-3PO with the extra rod on him, and they had to change their card as well. And as for the numbers of it, it's more desirable. People want it because it's the error card, but as far as I've heard, there's probably more of this one went out than the revised version. So,
yeah, I'd find it hard to believe that this was an accident, just a sheer coincidence. I mean, the millions of variables that would have to occur for this to occur, I find is highly unlikely. So I think someone in the production run sort of did it as a bit of a joke. But for those, as we were discussing earlier about the colours, if you look way over here, so the blue set is what we got and we all remember, right? But you look at all these other colours, you've got reds and yellows and greens and like browns and that. And of course, we never saw those at all. So to say that you have a full set of Star Wars cards, and in the end, there was hundreds of them. So I don't know anybody, I mean, personally, who has a full set of the whole lot. I had bits and pieces, of different sets, but never a complete run. And it was like, wow, it was just a complete mind spin when you discovered these things actually existed. So there you go.
So the other thing we didn't get, the American cards would get 6 cards and a sticker in every packet, and we didn't get the stickers either. And in Australia, it's weird. The stickers did get distributed, but you'd find it'd just be at random. You'd go into a milk bar or something, and there'd be this display packet of Star Wars stickers. And I don't know how well that's even been documented. I know for Empire, I've had some unopened packs of Australian Empire stickers, and I think they were imported from the UK or something weird. So it's very weird. And as Dags was saying, getting a complete set and saying you've got one of everything is very, very hard. I've had most of the base sets, but I haven't had all the stickers and all the different variants and everything like that. So yeah.
We've got a comment from Jess, who's the first time she's appeared in the show. I'm not going to put the comment up because it is a bit adult, but those in the Facebook feed will see it. But yes, it's to do with Dennis Lawson. You can make up your own thoughts as to how that all turned out. But it's all good. It's all happy. There's nothing wrong. So let's move on, shall we, before we get ourselves into trouble. All right, let's go.
And although we're really mainly looking at Star Wars, I thought we'd look at all the official cards on this show. This is the Empire Strikes Back lot. And again, with Empire Strikes Back, there were 3 sets. Australia just got 1 set. In the middle there, you kind of see I remember buying the oversized cards here. They were giant, the giant size cards. You'd get like 1 card and they were about the size of a photograph. And interestingly enough, even though I got them in Australia at milk bars, they were the tops versions, so someone was importing them. And next to that is sort of, you could buy sets of Empire cards, which kind of, for me, defeats the purpose of collecting cards. But if you're a collector, I guess it's good you just buy the set. But that was one of the weird things I said you could find in milk bars or sometimes in newsagents. You'd walk in a couple of years after the movies had gone and someone's like selling sets of cards and they've been put on a unique card that then turns up locally.
See, the thing about this particular set down the bottom, there was obviously the start card, the number 1, and there was actually a finish card too for this series. So that's, instead of just like doing what they did with Star Wars and just keeping the numbers running for thousands of, hundreds of thousands or whatever, they actually went to say 132 and then started series 2 at number 1 again. But once again, we didn't get series 2 in this country. We only got series 1. So yeah.
And
very
again,
sorry, I'm just going to cut you off. There's a comment here. So Thomas is obviously enjoying all the comments that are being dropped in and spilled his wine. So there you go. We tend to amuse here, even if we're not the ones actually saying the funny comments. So there you go. Sorry, man, keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say, on each of these pages, down the bottom there, you can see there's graded cards. The last one I showed a graded of the Goldenrod. That's a graded card of what are those vehicles? ATs. And
I'm actually going to catch up with you later on with this. So let's move on from this show. Otherwise, we'll never get.
I said it how you like it. I didn't say anything.
Yeah, good on you. I've got a joke for you coming up, so sit tight. So we move on to more cards, shall we? There you go.
Well, often the graded cards, if you get a card, some of them are 10 gem mint, they can go for thousands of dollars and more than an entire set. So that's absolutely crazy. And the Gem Mint C-3PO Goldenrod card that we had a couple of slides ago, that went for $10,000 American, so quite a lot. Sorry,
I was going to say, I'm not 100% surprised by that, because getting trading cards in absolute pristine condition is next to impossible. So, yeah, I can understand that. So go on, keep going. Sorry, cut you off, man.
So here we're on to the Return of the Jedi cards. And this is the first time as a kid growing up that I was exposed to spoilers, because the cards came out here a couple of months before the movie, and it was, oh my goodness, Leia is Luke's sister, which was spoiled by the trading cards for me. I think in America they came out before the movies as well, maybe not as in advance as in Australia. And in Australia we just got the the red border set. We didn't get the second set. By Return of the Jedi, I guess not as many people were collecting all the cards, and there was only 2 sets. So Star Wars 5 sets, Empire 3 sets, Jedi 2 sets. So that's a lot of cards. If you were going to collect all of them, that's a lot of images.
Would have been interesting, just sorry, quickly, if this did come out before the movie came out, right, and you hadn't seen the trailer, I mean, it's unlikely, but just assume that, you would have looked down here, if you could see here, and you got the green lightsaber, right? You may have actually thought, well, who's that? Because you wouldn't have twigged that it was Luke if you hadn't seen the trailer or anything else, because even in the poster, the lightsaber is blue. So I wonder if that confused anybody at any point to go, oh, there's another Jedi there. So you never know. So there you go. And by the way, I just want to say hello. We've got 26 people watching us at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, keep going, dude.
Probably not, because that's the second set, and in the first set there was a card called Fury of the Jedi, which was Luke on the sail barge chopping up monsters with a green lightsaber. So, but I guess with cards you don't get them in any order, do you? You just get them at random. So you do that. The other thing about these Star Wars cards and why I think so many people love them and they're so nostalgic for people, since the original movies were released, they have released, I don't know about hundreds of sets, but maybe hundreds of sets of other cards. And there's been the collectible card game, and there's been illustration cards of artwork, and then there's been the other movies. But still the ones that draw me is where they do a retro set and they use the borders from the old set to make the new cards look like the original cards. And they still have that nostalgia tug on me where I'm like, I don't collect cards. It's an absolute waste of money. Oh, these look like the original Empire Strikes Back cards. I think I'm going to collect this set. And they've done that a few times to sucker me in. So nostalgia really does work.
I thought it was very funny. I said there were 26 people watching, then suddenly 3 people dropped off, and I thought, oh, well, there you go. But we're now back up to 24. So, Jared, you've got a comment regarding made of plastic. It was like a coloured film slide, very thick, never anything, about posters. So we'll get to posters very, very soon. But aside from trading cards, which as a kid, everybody was into trading cards and, you know, buying what they could and thinking they were the greatest thing in the universe until you realize there was 10,000 series that we'd never seen before. There, of course, was Des Books.
Yes. So we looked at the original Star Wars books last week, but there's a few other books that came out in that era. Now, these days, there's a different Star Wars comic and novel and different series of them, and there's the Legacy ones and the Lucasfilm ones and the Del Rey ones. But back then, there wasn't a lot of what you would call, I guess, expanded universe literature. And the famous one, sorry, Dags, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to accentuate with what you said. You're right, there was no, this was the first of the new non-movie books to come out. And of course, I was in school. So hang on, how old were you when this came out in 77, 78?
I was only 6 or 7.
Cool. So I was 10 years old when this came out. And of course, we all thought it was going to be the new movie, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. It's the new Star Wars film. And of course, we couldn't get a hold of it quick enough and read it fast enough. And of course, when you read it, you go, this is going to make for a terrible movie. Anyway, keep going.
Well, I think it's interesting because as a couple of people noted last week, Alan Dean Foster wrote or ghost wrote the Star Wars novel for George Lucas, and as a reward of him not having his name on it, he got to write the first Star Wars spin-off. And there was a few stipulations. They weren't sure if Star Wars was going to be huge, and they weren't sure if 20th Century Fox would want to make another movie. So he was told to write a story that could be made as a TV movie. So as Dag said, wouldn't have been as visual, wouldn't have been as expansive as the original movie. I think George Lucas gave him the ideas of the Kyber crystals because that's something that's been kicking around in different versions of the scripts before this book came out.
Sorry, just quickly, and with different spelling too, because in this book it was Kyber, K-A-I-B-U-R-R. So anyway.
Yes, and it's one of those things where when it came out, I read it, and I remember as Dag's going, oh, this is a bit interesting. It isn't as exciting as I thought it would be. I do think it's interesting in the Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the paperback on the top left, we were talking about the different Star Wars logos and how they changed before the official release. The M on that is actually an upside-down version of the W that they decided not to go with. So that's a really interesting, you could put that with the Star Wars paperback with the same M and it sort of fits. And also there's the hardback version, which is really hard to get. We discussed last week that a lot of the hardbacks went into libraries because the paperbacks, you know, kids or people would buy because they're a couple of dollars, but the libraries would buy, you know, the $20, $30, $40 hardbacks because they last better in the library. And trying to find a non-X library of these books is actually really hard. And I was looking at the prices some of them go, and they can go between $500 and $1,000 for a nice first edition that's not X library.
A few things. So yeah, I agree with you, Dave. The artwork alone looks fantastic. That middle picture is absolutely awesome from good old Ralph McQuarrie. So as PJ has mentioned, of course, in this particular book, for those who don't know the history of it, Luke and Leia weren't brother and sister at this point. So there was a bit of uncertainty as to their relationship. So for all intents and purposes, they were still a couple. And of course, Han and Chewie didn't appear at all. So imagine making a new Star Wars movie without Han and Chewie at all appearing in it. And of course, Mimban, the planet that this is set on, actually appears in Solo. So, yeah, how cool is that? But, yes, a lot of people have said that they all read the book. There's a lot of comments here regarding that. And I agree with you, Kevin. Yeah, we just couldn't put it down until we got to the end. And as a Darth Vader fan, Vader didn't appear until the end anyway. So it was a bit of a letdown. So, but, yes, this was the first of all. I mean, it wasn't even classed as expanded universe at this point. But it was, yes, the first book that came out after the original movie, which is kind of cool.
Well, you mentioned that Han and Chewie weren't in that, but they got their own series of paperbacks. And I was young enough when I read Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I don't really remember it. I remember it more from, I think Dark Horse did a comic book adaptation of it probably 10 or 15 years after it came out. And it's the same with these books. I remember being absolutely blown away by the covers and thinking they looked fantastic and were amazing pieces of art. I remember getting them and reading them and not being able to put them down. And I cannot remember a single story detail about them. When I was researching this, I got online and looked up what they were about. And the thing that interests me about this, and when I was researching this episode, I had never seen the hardbacks of these books before. Splinter of the Mind's Eye, I did borrow the hardback from a local library. I didn't know the Han Solo books came out in hardback. And again, they're very, very hard to get and go for quite a bit of money. Did you read these when they came out?
No, because I wasn't a Han Solo fan. So, but I did hear about Blue Max and Bollocks afterwards. What a name for a robot, Bollocks. And of course, when Solo, the movie, was being made, people were wondering how much is going to get referenced in the film from these books. And luckily, Blue Max and Bollocks didn't make an appearance. So, but no, I wasn't the Han Solo fan at all. It didn't really sort of appeal to me. So, but I did read the second series that they produced, I don't know, 15 years later, and I did actually quite enjoy those. But yes, but these were a bit of a big deal when they first came out. That's absolutely.
So it's interesting because it means that the Crystal Skull from Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls wasn't the first Crystal Skull that Han Solo or Harrison Ford went after. And if we go to the next slide, this is from, I think I'm correct, Dryden Voss's spaceship in Solo.
Yep.
And in that scene, he has a private museum, and there's a whole lot of different little artifacts, and all the artifacts are from, they're Easter eggs from different books and comics and things like that. Now, does anybody know who that skull is? Because I didn't until I looked it up. I'll talk a little bit because we have a bit of delay to see if anyone does know. But they did do this as a callback to the Han Solo book. They also mentioned something from the Lando books in this movie. And a lot of people go, oh, that's a reference to Crystal Skull from Crystal Skulls, but it was actually a reference to the Han Solo book. Now, you've got to be a really big Star Wars fan to know all the backstory to this, because this is kind of, there's the legacy stuff that was set up in comic books and now Del Rey, but this is before this. So I don't know if anyone's going to get it.
Well, before you get into it, how long is the story?
This is just a couple of seconds. So.
All right, cool.
This is Zim the Despot, and that's his masthead, the Crystal Skull. So there's a whole backstory to that you can go into, but it's one of those, I guess, forgotten storylines from Star Wars where there was this whole expanded universe that started and then kind of finished. I think what probably happened, Lucasfilm decided at the time people were doing whatever they wanted, and then I think they decided, okay, we need to sit down and consolidate what's happening so different authors can't just make up their own stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case at all. It was a backstory for Han and Chewie. It didn't really impact anything else that occurred. And I agree with what Jared said. Yeah, it's just full of vodka. Just leave it at that, shall we? So while Han was running off getting his books made, believe it or not, now these make for fantastic trivia questions. What were the names of the 3 Lando Calrissian books? And many people cannot get this right. So, yes.
I'd be pushing it. I'd remember the Mine Harp one. The other ones I probably wouldn't have remembered. Again, what I love from this era is the artwork which accompanied it. There was really imaginative artwork that really was of its time that you don't see as much these days. The artwork these days seems to be more computer generated. Although Star Wars is pretty good. They have kept up with some of the original artists.
As I was saying, I mean, you look at the titles, and it's just like, who comes up with these ridiculous titles? Mine, Harper Sharu, Flame World of Ozion, and the Star Cave of Thon Boca. That doesn't exactly say, oh, God, I've got to read that book because the title is really, really grabbing at my heartstrings.
Well, I've got to say I've had these books, and I only read the Mind Harp one. I've never read the other ones. So, again, just from reading one, and I had all three, they didn't grab me enough to make me want to read the other one. So if you've got the Splinter of the Mind's Eye and the Han Solo books and the Lando Calrissian books, you're a true fan. I think it's hard getting them, especially in really good condition, because they didn't get a lot of reprints in the original editions. They have been reprinted with different covers later and sort of updated editions. They're very hard to get in good condition. You don't see them in book exchanges or around very much at all. But I was looking online. They don't go for a fortune either, so you can pick them up.
Yeah, there's no real demand for them. And I guess of the two, the Han Solo books will definitely be in higher demand. But it was good that they actually did do some books for Lando. I mean, I've never read them, never paid any attention to them whatsoever. Be curious to see how the backstory of him worked and whether they'll actually introduce that into any canon source or not. Now, that actually brings us into the subject of posters. And there was a comment made from Jared earlier saying a mate of his in high school had an Empire Strikes Back movie poster, but it was different. It was made of plastic. It was like coloured film style and slide and very thick. So I'm not entirely sure what that is, Jared, but you never know. These days it might be worth an absolute fortune. But it does bring us on to this topic, movie posters. And this is something I certainly know something about. So, but go for it. We're 27 people watching at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. Equals our record from last week.
This is one of those topics that I kind of thought about. Do we do a whole show on posters or we look at them with Star Wars? And I think if we look at them at movies, we're just going to look at the Star Wars ones in this presentation. And I've got to say, for me, the posters were some of the things that really grabbed me and drew me into the Star Wars universe even before the movies. Because back at the time, I saw the movie and it blew me away, but my parents weren't going to be taking me to see a movie over and over again when I was a kid. Like when I was little, we saw about 3 movies a year. And that was it. So we weren't going to go see Star Wars a whole heap of times like some people did. So it was the posters and the artwork that really drew me in. And I think what's great about it, it really encapsulates a sort of aesthetic that works for kids, works for teenagers, works for adults, and works for really anyone. You look at those posters and you know you're in for an exciting movie kind of thing. There's 3 different posters there. There's the Australian one on the left is the one that we got and I had up on my bedroom wall as a kid. And then there's the other posters that came out during the time. Did you have any of the posters, Dags?
Yeah, I'll talk about what I had in a few ticks. So the funny thing to note with this, first things first, so Luke is holding the gun in his left hand. A lot of people didn't pick up on the fact that Mark Hamill is left-handed, not right-handed. In this version here, Leia's wearing the dress from the ceremony at the end, the award ceremony, which is funny because you compare it to this one here where she's actually quite covered up. So they've obviously in this version said, oh no, we need to have the busty look, the leg, the whole thing. And of course, with Luke with the bare chest, both in this version and this version. It's kind of interesting how they're sort of marketing it. So you could almost argue in this version, they've said, oh yeah, we need to sort of push the sexuality a little bit for both main characters. And yet, even though on this version, the Hildebrand version over there, they've sort of funked it up with a whole lot of color and blue and all the rest of it. So it's very interesting to sort of see how everything works in terms of the style, the design, and what the target audience was. Because in this version, there's a lot of blank space over here that's just effectively wasted, which is quite funny. And for those who didn't pick up on the fact, the reason why we know the Australian Star Wars one is because the NRC down the bottom here, they're not recommended for children. And of course, it was made by MAFS as well. I'll get in a sec as to which ones I owned. So this is some of the stuff that we saw that got us into the movies in the first place.
Now, the poster in the middle there is actually my favourite Star Wars poster. I think it was the one they call the circus poster, which kind of looks like billboards that have been slapped onto a wall for Star Wars and other stuff around it. So that's my favourite one. And I didn't pick that up for years. I saw it in books, but I didn't find one locally for a long time. I eventually picked up one from Moviola. And I can't remember what it cost me, but it cost me a bit. And then the other thing we've got there in the backgrounds is the horizontal versions of some of the posters that were used, mainly in UK and Europe, but for different advertising as well.
So just clear. So posters were categorized by their physical size. So the one in the middle, this big one here, is called a one sheet. So it's just one sheet by itself, right? When you turn it sideways, it was called a half sheet. And of course, then you got into like 2 sheet, 3 sheet, 4 sheet. I actually knew a friend of mine who actually had a 26 sheet of, so it was designed to go in a drive-in, right? A massive billboard for Return of the Jedi. So if you're wondering what the terminology is, and of course you've got day bills, which are the long skinny ones, okay, which were manufactured in Australia. But when we say one sheet, we're referring to what effectively this one is here, okay? And we're saying half sheet, we're talking about these sideways ones over there. So there you go. And you're right, in England they had quads, which was like one sheet multiplied 4 times. Okay, cool. Anyway, so go on.
No, sorry. If you collect posters, like that's a rabbit hole you can go down and never finish, because there are that many Star Wars posters and that many variants and that many international posters. And I've got to say, some of the international art is quite interesting.
So over here, as you can see, it's the Star Wars Happy Birthday poster. I actually owned this at one point, believe it or not. Believe it or not, even though there's 12 months in the year and there were 12 action figures produced for Star Wars, there's only 11 of them around here. The Jawa is missing for some reason. So I don't know how that happened. Maybe when they were taking the picture, they didn't have access to one or something. But yeah, it's kind of bizarre. So for 12 months, they've only got 11 characters.
And that one's actually quite desirable for the Kenner action figure collectors, because it's the poster that has the toys on as well. And that's quite a hard poster to find. So I can
happily assure you, I sold mine, and the person who bought it is actually on this forum right now, and I paid for a boat cruise. So yes, I was quite happy with that, which is a true story. Anyway,
so we were talking earlier about the glasses and some of the stuff that was given away. Now these were posters that were given away at Burger Chef in America. In Australia, we had them, I think, through Hungry Jack's as well.
I thought it was Coca-Cola, actually. I thought they were Coca-Cola posters. Anyway, continue.
You're absolutely right, because the Australian ones have the Coca-Cola logo on. I never picked them up when they came out. I only picked them up collections later, and they were from Australian collections, so they got printed here. But I think these are really amazing pieces of art in themselves. So if you collect posters, you can collect the movie posters and the official movie posters, but then there's all these other posters which come out for promo items and to advertise different products that are collectible as well. And often the things that come out as promos or as adverts are harder to get than the official poster, because the official poster will get a print that you can go in and pick up in a poster shop or a science fiction shop. But if you've got like something on the wall at McDonald's or Hungry Jack's, once that's gone, that's never, ever going to be reprinted again. So some of these posters are quite hard to find.
Yeah, there's a lot of messages coming through from people saying about the different ones that they've had and what they've bought in their time and what they've once owned and not owned anymore, and those who've still got them, which is very, very cool. But it'd be interesting to see how many people had these ones, foreign languages.
So then we start looking at the foreign languages. It's interesting with the foreign language posters that obviously the aesthetic for a lot of different countries is totally different for what we're used to here. So you've got some of the foreign posters that do use the original art, and obviously Lucasfilm or 20th Century Fox, who do the distribution, would have sent out press kits and official artwork. And at the time, you know, local cinemas or local distributors could use them or go, no, that's not going to sell to the local population here. We're going to totally change it. And some of them are changed, you know, for the better, and some of them are changed for the worse. And I think these ones are quite interesting. I really appreciate all the different art, but they've obviously said, this is a comic book movie, so we're going to really make it look like a comic book. Some of it is quite weird. You've got the dewback on the one on the right there that looks like it's growing out of C-3PO's head. And the one in the middle, the Luke at the back, actually looks like they've got a 12-inch Luke Skywalker doll and used that as the model rather than an official picture of Mark Hamill. So some of these are very interesting.
So imagine Leia wearing this outfit, the over-the-shoulder sort of like a toga kind of dress. That would have been kind of made a different movie out of Star Wars, wouldn't it? So that's for sure.
It would have. Yeah.
Yes. I think they got another. Yes. So a couple of this.
Here we get into the really abstract and interesting ones. The one on the left is Hungarian, and you've got like Vader with a very formidable grill across his face and an aqua blue Death Star blowing up in the burnt orange sky, and which looks like dinosaurs walking around. I'd have probably seen that poster and been intrigued, but when you went and saw the movie, it was very different to the poster. And the one underneath there is also a Hungarian poster with a bantha that almost looks like a snail with tusks on it. Sort of that orangey one. So a much more, I guess, free version of interpreting what was happening in the movies. These posters are incredibly hard to get as well. So you don't see them very much. Probably the most bizarre one, though, is the Russian one at the top, which has like a space cowboy that has a cutout of different electronics, and it looks like, sort of 70s dials and cogs and stuff. So that almost looks like a poster for THX more than Star Wars, really, the aesthetic to that one.
Or a variation of Westworld. I like what Rod said. He had the access to the birthday poster and didn't buy it because of the missing Jawa. Dude, you lucked out like you would not believe on that one in terms of a resale value. And Rod has also made a mention about the Polish Jedi one with the Vader's head is exploding. I've actually seen that. Yes. And you go, that's a bizarre way to promote a film. So, it's unbelievable. Yes, PJ reckons, it does look like Westworld, as I said. So
we will be looking at Empire and Jedi down the track. It's just there's too much to look at in one show. So
and I've got a funny story about posters too to mention at the very end of this. So, but anyway, continue on.
So one of my favorite presentations of the Star Wars poster is actually the Japanese version. That one in the middle there, I actually think looks more striking with the Japanese text on it than the English text. And I've actually seen T-shirts of that poster. I've had one and I wore it out, and it got too old, so don't have it anymore. But the Japanese stuff is amazing. I think they took the original posters and adapted them really well to the local market. So these ones are all very hard to find original Japanese posters, but they all look great.
Very good. Now, I made a mention last time we were talking about posters about the checklist, and I could not remember what it was called. It was actually made by Killian Enterprises. And what they did they did this about in the mid-90s, I think it was. They produced a poster, and it's actually meant to be a checklist. So you can actually go through all the text on the right-hand side, tells you the history of every poster that was produced. And one of the reasons why they did this is American, obviously. They wanted to show that at least one poster of every variant existed at that time in a rolled format. Okay, So that was the main reason why they did it, because back there was an occasion there where posters were folded up as well, and of course, as soon as you open them up, you've got the white lines and they kind of get ruined and destroyed. So they did actually prove that, yes, a rolled version of every single Star Wars poster existed at one point. And yes, you can still get this, the Killian Enterprises one. So just to show you a bit more of a close-up of this. So the top left, this is the one we discussed last week regarding when they were handing them out at the San Diego Comic-Con in 1976. So that was classed as obviously a rare poster. And this is all the movie posters that came out. Now, to answer your original question as to which ones I own, so I either had these or I still have them. So I actually have those ones. So I have all the original versions. So I was actually a big Star Wars poster collector back in the time. And yes, I did actually have, as I said earlier, the Happy Birthday poster, which I sold to Joel, and it paid for a boat cruise. The half sheet, I've actually got the half sheet for Empire and Jedi, and I bought those at the Worldcon in America back in '93. And the circus poster, I actually have that, but it's been water damaged. And apparently you can actually iron posters to clean them out, and which is kind of groovy. But things like this one down here, which was when it was a few years later, like a reissue, you can't read it, but it actually says Revenge of the Jedi in the corner there as well. And my version is folded, so it's a bit unfortunate. And my version of this was damaged as well. But the key thing is this one up here, the main Star Wars poster, absolutely minto condition, and it's one of my prized posters, which I didn't sell. When it came to further down the list, As you can see, there's actually like variations. Like for Revenge of the Jedi, you've got the standard one, you've got the one with the date underneath. And believe it or not, yes, they did include the Ewok posters at the bottom. For myself, I do actually have as one of my favorite posters of all time the the Empire Strikes Back one with Vader. So I've got a mint condition one of those, and of course the Gone with the Wind poster. Of course, I've got a mint condition one of those, original release. This one here is actually on cardboard for some unknown reason. So I'm not entirely sure why it was produced that way. And this one over here, believe it or not, I actually have it. It's 4 feet high in a frame. There's a long story as to how I got that. So yeah, that's very, very cool. One of my prized ones. And Revenge of the Jedi, I got 2 of them. So yes, back in my poster collecting days, I was a bit hardcore. But if you're interested in finding out more about movie posters from America, this is the poster to get. So there you go. So that's what I wanted to chuck in. Very, very cool.
No problem. And then I think we've got one last poster picture, which is an interesting one because I can't find much information on these. Now, I don't know if they were licensed or not, but these black and white posters were available in Australia. I've never been able to get any. I think they might have been sold at like the Royal Melbourne Show and things like that. Now, I've seen them twice, and both times they've been in record shops glued to the roof. There was one in the Pitt Street Records up in Sydney, in Pitt Street, and it was the Chewbacca and Han Solo one. And I used to go up year after year and see that and always ask if they'd sell it to me, and they wouldn't. And then there was another one, I think it turned up in Batman's Records in the city here, and again it was stuck up on the wall and they wouldn't sell it, and then it disappeared, so they probably got offered a big price to it. Do you remember these posters, Dax?
Yeah, I do actually. They look very, very cool. The black and white photography was outstanding. And once again, good old Leia is wearing the what do you want to call it? The medal presentation dress, which was interesting.
So there was another one, I think, in this series that is more just Princess Leia, the classic portrait shot of her with the buns and holding the sporting blaster.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find much information at all. I couldn't find any for sale, but I have recollections of these and being things I really, really wanted and never have been able to track down. So they're one of those unique items. I don't know if they were Australian only. It's just my speculation that they might have been one of those things put out locally for the show and stuff, because if they were international, I think there'd be more information on them because they're such striking posters. But I don't know if anyone watching has got any of those posters, but they're fantastic. If you ever see them, I'd grab them. Yeah.
Totally agree with you. Now, it's actually 9:30, but we're going to keep plowing through this because we've still got 24 people watching. So hopefully we're still entertaining everybody. You can all nick off and watch MasterChef, as I'm sure Carol will do for in Ballarat. But hopefully you guys are happy to stick it out with us for a little bit longer. So let's move on, shall we?
And this is an interesting piece that I found, and it goes to show no matter how much you know about Star Wars, there's still stuff you can find, because I didn't know about this. We looked at comics briefly last week, but this is a Chinese comic that was released in 1980, and it's an adaptation of the original Star Wars, and it wasn't discovered until a couple of years ago. Now, Star Wars wasn't released in China. Star Wars Empire and Return of the Jedi weren't released there, and that's why I think it isn't as big, because there isn't the sort of nostalgia for it as there is here. But these comics were released. There was an Empire Strikes Back one as well. And they have some fantastic art that is very close to the movie. And then they have some art that is nothing to do with the movie at all. You've got down in the bottom middle there a very sort of more weather-worn Han Solo, who's a bit more burly and a bit more older and roguish, I guess. The interesting one up in the top right-hand corner, the picture of the 3 girls there, that's all Leia. That's R2-D2's hologram to Luke, playing the message to Leia when he's cleaning him in the garage. And again, it's a bit too small to see. Underneath that picture, there's Vader looking at the war plans, and I think it actually has something about blowing up NASA on the wall. So it really was Star Wars. And underneath that, you've got a dewback that looks more like a Triceratops from a dinosaur than an actual dewback. But they were one of those things. Now I will be looking for that comic to add to my collection, because that's the kind of weird stuff I really like to collect.
So there's a question from PJ whether the Ewok posters would be worth anything. I would say no, because there's just no demand for them. Hey?
Yeah, they are, because the Ewoks wasn't released in the cinemas in America. The posters are
That's
actually
true.
hard to get because they sort of only were released in Australia and a couple of other places. So
Yeah.
Ewoks in general isn't the most popular offshoot of the franchise, but for collectors, they're actually really hard to find and really desirable.
Yeah, I think it'd be a very eclectic mix, though. I mean, yeah, because they're not part of the official canon. I think a lot of fans would go, yeah, great. But if they were, get them cheap, fine. But if you have to pay a lot of money, yeah, I don't think the interest would be there myself personally. But anyway, move on. We're only going to couple of shots.
So we've come to the end of Star Wars, but before Empire was released, there was actually, during the Star Wars era, there was still Empire Strikes Back updates of the movie coming out. And can you believe it? Toy companies were actually really scared that the era of space toys was over and Empire Strikes Back was going to bomb. And they were really wary of pre-ordering Empire Strikes Back toys because they didn't think George Lucas could, catch lightning in a bottle twice and produce another movie that was as popular as Star Wars. And the interesting quote down the bottom, and the Lucasfilm representative apparently got in trouble for this. He was trying to describe Tauntauns and said, these are characters that can move. The characters can move about in a Tauntaun, because obviously the toy, you could stick the character in it, but it didn't make it very clear, which Kenner officials described as not a vehicle, but, well, like a kangaroo. And so you can just imagine, if you hadn't got pictures of this and the toy companies are trying to sell these to retailers, it's not sounding amazingly good. And for us, you can have a bit of a laugh because we're like, oh, Empire was amazing and the toys sold really well. But Star Wars toys had started to flag in the sales just before Empire came out. And that's why they were doing things like producing 3-figure sets, because they were bundling 3 together to sort of move the stock on. So even after seeing how huge Star Wars was for so many years, there wasn't confidence in Empire Strikes Back. And I find that really amazing, because with hindsight, you'd bet the farm on it, wouldn't you?
Indeed. So Jared has asked about Star Wars vinyl. We sort of did touch on records last week, but we're not talking about anything that was produced recently. We're talking about back in the day, the original releases. So, and I think the 3D hologram version was a relatively recent release. So yes, Empire toys.
And again, before Empire came out, there was ads for the toys, and there was different flyers for the toys as they tried to get interest. Up in the top corner there, you can see there's an ad for Empire Strikes Back toys, and it is exclusively Star Wars toys, the Sandcrawler and the Death Star and things. And then some of the prototypes. You've got like the 12-inch version of Leia and Han and Lando that were never eventually released. So the advertising was interesting. And down the bottom there, there's some interesting advertising for Dengar. And I remember this, but it was for Bosk, where before the movie came out, there was all these ads like, buy this amazing new character. But the one I remember getting was for Bosk, where they're like, a secret figure. If you send in 5 proof of purchases, you'll get a secret figure from Empire Strikes Back. And it was going to be a figure, it was a new major part of the Star Wars movies. And got Bosk before Empire came back. And I go, this is fantastic. He's this big lizard man, and he looks like he's in a flight suit, and he's got a gun and everything. And then the movie comes out, and he's in it for about 3 seconds, and he says like, gurgle, gurgle, and that's it. And I remember thinking, I feel totally ripped off that I was hyped up for Bosk. And it's the same as the ad there, which I don't remember at the time, for Dengar, where you've got Dengar hyped up as this bionic bounty hunter who's a new major part of the Star Wars trilogy. And I would say he even had less lines than Bosk. So it's really interesting what they chose to advertise. You've got the carry cases there, and you've got, as you can see in the color ad, the Tauntaun there, which is the giant kangaroo that characters can move around in that the Kenner executive was talking about. You've got the advanced pictures, black and white for Empire coming, and then up in the top corner you've got the carry case, and I don't know if that was out before Empire was released, but I put it there because it's a really cool piece of art. So why though, Dags, do you think that maybe the toy shop owners and the toy producers Why do you think maybe they didn't think everything Star Wars was going to be like the Midas touch? Do you have an idea?
No, I like what Gavin said though. He had none of this stuff. He was deprived of such greatness.
It's in the next slide.
Yeah, okay. So it must be because of this.
Because everyone forgets. It's a bit. I mean, no one forgets it. Everyone knows about it, but everyone forgets that Star Wars was a massive hit, and everyone thought Star Wars was amazing. And then this came out and proved that not everything that was related to Star Wars was amazingly good. Now, this is good in one of those things. It's so bad, it's amazing to watch. And then it's got the debut of Boba Fett. But if you were a toy distributor and you'd seen Star Wars and it had gone gangbusters, and then the next thing that comes out from the franchise is B. Arthur singing in the cantina, and Chewbacca's dad sort of like watching Donna Summer do acrobats to like disco things. It was more like a episode of the Donnie and Marie show than anything to do with the Star Wars universe. So you could probably understand at the time, we laugh about it now, that Star Wars had, a certain amount of prestige about it, and this came along and tarnished it. And I actually do think one of the reasons that George Lucas has buried this so deeply in the archives, because before Empire came out, the last thing you really wanted was bad publicity with people going, hey, hang on, not everything to do with Star Wars is amazing. And if this was being spoken about at toy fairs and stuff, because they did plan stuff, Chewbacca's family were planned and nobody wanted it. And you've got to remember, a lot of the money from the first movie was made off the off the toys and the related items, not just the movie. If you had a product out there that was stopping toy buyers from wanting to buy products from Empire Strikes Back, you're going to want to get rid of that and bury it really, really fast.
Yeah, so I think history will show Lucas really didn't have a lot to do with it. It was mainly Fox. They've obviously grabbed the thing and said, we'll just invent a story and away we go. But it is what it is, and history is what history says. What I found interesting, now, it's very funny. We're doing like a bit of an adult show here, really. We had the goldenrod from C-3PO earlier. Now, I don't know if you people can see this, but the Wookiee design down here actually has breasts on it. I've never seen that before on a toy. That is kind of freaky. So... yeah, that's a bit wrong, isn't it? So, and they're like bare and everything, and there's no fur or anything. So, if you want to zoom in on the screen and have a look at that, knock yourselves out. So, yes,
there was no real merchandise released for it. Up in the top corner, there is the only book that was released for the holiday special or spin-off, and it was about Chewbacca and his family. And I've had it a couple of times, but that's quite hard to get, and a lot of people don't even know that it really came out. There was a couple of magazines that did articles on it. Down in the bottom corner there, Wookiee boobies. Down in the bottom there, someone's made a custom of the figure, and I think it's funny. The mail away on it is for mail away for a free B. Arthur. So I think that's how you take the Star Wars Holiday Special. It's an interesting thing that happened, and it's tongue in cheek, but don't take it too seriously. I don't think anyone's going to be celebrating Life Day on Disney Plus anytime soon.
Oh, dear. Well, I can actually tell you as an absolute fact, we were once showing the holiday special between a Skyforce meeting and the Christmas party, and we put it on with the idea we'll turn it off an hour later. And when we turned it off an hour later, everybody complained because they're actually enjoying watching it. So we thought, what is wrong with you people?
I have my off-air copy of it that I recorded. It was shown twice in Australia, so I recorded it on the second time. And the best thing in it is the ad breaks, because it's got all these retro ads that you don't see anymore. So it's not a fantastic piece of viewing.
Very good. Okay, it's nearly 9:45. I wanted to get through this one last bit, and I'll do it pretty quickly. Okay, so everybody who's watching, don't nick off just yet. Because it actually relates exactly to what we're talking about, but I'll go through it very quickly just so we don't spend a lot of time. So back in 1993, I got to go to Steve Sansweet's place. He's home in Los Angeles before he moved to San Francisco, long before he set up Rancho Obi-Wan. And, of course, he was an author of many books, collectible books back in the day, and still is. And but we got to see him before he became this world-famous sort of collectible dude that you know today. So these pictures were actually taken from his house in 1993. Okay, and he lived on the side of a hill in Los Angeles, and myself and a few other guys got to go and pay him a visit. Now, this links directly into our presentation because all this stuff was purchased before the internet existed, and it was very, very hard to go through his house because it was very, very cramped. It was very, very small and very hard to take some photos. But the key things that I wanted is, as you can see from these two pictures here, but the key things to be aware of is that he had everything from the original releases onwards, everything that we've discussed. He owned it all. So in the left picture there, on the hooks, you can see all of the original action figures. And when they first came out, still in mint condition, this was just one of a couple of different displays that he had, which was absolutely fantastic. So, so all the things that we've looked at, he had and still has, which is absolutely amazing. And on the right-hand picture, it's very, very difficult to work out, but that's his T-shirt, jacket, and hat collection. So all this stuff in here. So this is before it was all categorized and all put on display in Rancho Obi-Wan, and this is how it all looked back in the day. Now, when it came to toys, of course, he had all the original releases when they first came out. So, so you can see in the pictures here, like for example, you've got the Ewok village over there, all the Death Star space stations over here, all the die-cast figures over there. They hadn't all been categorized at this point, and he was writing a book at the time. He actually had a full-time person whose job it was to sort of compile a listing of everything that he had. So the place was a bit of a mess, and all the Micro Machine figures up here, all the large toys down the bottom here, and all the spaceships and all the rest of it. So it was really kind of a bit of a mind spin to sort of see this stuff at the time, especially stuff that did not get released in this country. And of course, this is now a major part of Rancho Obi-Wan. And of course, I put this in for Aaron, got the AT down here, still mint in box, as you can see. Some of the jigsaw puzzles that we were discussing earlier are up here, and of course all the model kits. And of course he was a big person for buying things from overseas in different countries, especially Japan. He was really, really big into buying stuff from Japan, and including die-cast TIE bombers. We freaked out when we saw this because we'd never even seen them in this country, and there they are, mint in boxes, if they were manufactured yesterday. That's how cool that was, and the TIE fighters and the Yodas and all the rest of it. So all the original toys still mint in box. Yeah, it was just amazing. And every day that we were there, he was getting stuff sent to him from people overseas, and he said it was every day was like Christmas. So one day we were having dinner, he had a delivery turn up, and what it was Darth Vader skateboard wheels. It was like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like it, which was absolutely magnificent. And we were talking about posters earlier. Now, one of the things that Steve Sansweet was, he was a huge poster collector. He had every single one, all the ones that we saw in the Killian poster earlier, he had the whole lot, had them all laminated and put on a wall, right, in this corridor. Looked absolutely fantastic. But then he realized that laminating posters ruins their value. So he was able to rebuy them all again and kept them mint. And what he did is he put them into people who are architects, those large drawers that you slide out and you put in your pictures. We actually went and he had a whole big stack of these of this cabinet full of these drawers. And the very first drawer we pulled out, the very first one, had the Star Wars original half sheet, and sure enough, written on it was, "To Steve, all the best, George Lucas." And it was like they put everything into complete and utter perspective. And that was back in '93. So we're talking nearly 20-something years ago, or 93, 2000. This is 30 years ago. Yeah, nearly 30 years ago. And look where he's come since then. So absolutely fantastic. So I just wanted to cover that off. And yeah, that's actually the end of the presentation. So yeah, pretty insane. So
well, if you think that's impressive, next time I'm around at your place, I'll get out one of your mint Star Wars posters and I'll dedicate it to Dags. Best wishes, Aaron Challenger.
Mate, that would be absolutely awesome. How good is that? Now, sorry for running over time, guys. There was a lot to cover off. We've still got 24 people watching, which is actually really, really cool. One of the things that I wanted to say before we finish, next week I've got a fashion change. So they're going to be seeing something a little bit different about the Dags. So that's all I'm going to say. So you're going to have to tune in for that at least, because I'm going to be doing something a little differento. So
are we going to give them an idea of what we're doing next week, or leave it as a surprise?
No, you can tell them if you want.
So Dags has just shown us a couple of pictures from a tour he did in the States. And that's just part of a fantastic album he was showing me, because he actually got to go to Skywalker Ranch during the 90s, go through the archives. I'm not joking here, try clothes on, put stuff on, pick up props, and he documented it with photos. And so I saw this and said, okay, it's not 100% collectibles, but everyone would love to collect this stuff. And it's a lot of stuff I don't think anyone's seen there. His personal photos from his album, It's going to be a fantastic show. So we're going to take a trip to the 90s Skywalker Ranch next week.
Yeah, the good thing is the lockdown will be over. People can travel the 25K, so nobody's going to be watching us because they're going to be going, nah, I'd rather be watching something else. So there you go. But anyway, so yes, you can join us for that, which should be very interesting to say the least. Anyway, so aside from all that, thanks for sticking around, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you had a bit of a Star Wars fix, which has been absolutely fantastic. So other than that, make sure all your collectibles remain mint in box.
Or rip them off the card.
Bye for now.
Bye.